Number 4, before Allah Azza wa Jal establishes the ummah has to pass through stations before you get to the final destination. It's like a train ride, and you have to go through station 1, station 2, station 3. There's some stations that the ummah has to pass through. One of these stations is al-ibtila, trials and tribulations, tests. Allah Azza wa Jal says, أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ وَلَمَّا يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا مِنْكُمْ وَلَمْ يَتَّخِذُوا مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَلَا رَسُولِهِ وَلَا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَلِيجًا. Allah Azza wa Jal says, do you think that you will enter into paradise before Allah knows the ones who will fight jihad among you, and the ones who will not take other than Allah, Rasulullah, and the believers as awliya? So these are two stations that you have to pass through before you enter into Jannah and before you are established on earth. Jihad fi sabilillah and wala and bara. So before these two issues become clear, there can be no establishment on earth. The ummah has to fight jihad fi sabilillah, and the ummah has to make it clear that their wala, their loyalty is to Allah, Rasulullah, and the believers, and that they are disavowing, distancing themselves from shaitan and al-kuffar. So some scholars, some Islamic movements, some Muslims are trying to run away from these two stations, but there's no way you can run away from these two stations if you want to get tamkeen. And the test is now happening to the ummah. Allah Azza wa Jal is testing the ummah, and we are being placed in situations where we have to make the choice between iman and kufr. And this is part of the test. And the test starts from high up, and then it goes to the lower level. So it starts with the al-umara wal-ulama. It starts with the kings, presidents and scholars, and then it goes down to the people before them. Now for the kings, the test has been finished with. Khalas, they have already chosen al-kuffar. Allah alam, I think that all of the results have already been handed out. Now al-ulama are going through the test. They are being tested. You are either with us or against us. Bush is putting them to the test. And he is appointing their kings and presidents, who are nothing but police officers for Bush, to do the job for him. You're either with us or against us. You have to make a choice. You can't play in between, stand on both sides of the fence. You can't anymore. Now you have to make the choice. 10 years ago, yeah, you can. You can give a very nice khutbah about jihad fi sabilillah and then go and have dinner with the king, and there's no problem. But now you can't play both roles anymore. You have to make it clear, who are you with? So that gray area is disappearing, and that's why Rasulullah said, فُسْطَاط إِيمان لَا نِفَاقَ فِيهِ وَفَسْطَاط كُفْرٍ لَا إِيمَانَ فِيهِ. Rasulullah said this test will carry on until the two camps are completely separate. A camp of iman with no nifaq, and a camp of kufr with no iman. Now things are mixed up. There can be no establishment for the ummah until that mixing up is cleared up. Sayyid Qutb mentions in his Dhilal al-Quran, he says that Allah Azza wa Jal does not give the Anbiya establishment on earth until it becomes clear who is with him and who's against him. It doesn't happen when things are mixed up. So now the ummah needs to be separated into mu'min and munafiq. And Allah Azza wa Jal has destined that Bush will be part of the test, and he's the one who's putting people to the test on one side, and the mujahideen are putting the ummah to the test on the other side. So you have now both the mujahideen on one side and Bush on the other side, and everyone is attracting people towards their camp, and that is what the Americans call the battle of the mind and heart. It is really the battle between haqq and batil, and it's the battle between musk al-iman and musk al-kufr. This ayah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَمَن يَتَوَلَّ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فَإِنَّ حِزْبَ اللَّهِ هُمُ الْغَالِبُونَ. The one who takes Allah, Rasulullah, and the believers as awliya, then the party of Allah will be victorious. So the party of Allah cannot be victorious until this issue of wala is clear, the wala to the believers. So, to recap, I mentioned that if Allah Azza wa Jalla wants an end, He would create for it its means. We mentioned 3 proofs to this rule, Bu'ath, and we mentioned what happened in Persia, and then an example from the time of Salah ad-Din. Now, we said that history repeats itself. That was number 1. And then number 2, Allah Azza wa Jalla is preparing particular areas And number 3, that fundamentalism is on the rise in the West. And number 4, the Ummah has to pass through stations towards establishment.